sledging equipment. There are a number of ways to produce jackets. Copper strip, the famous D-rim die where you turn spent 22 rim fires into very good usable cases for 22 centerfire bullets, and copper tubing jackets, which are quite well known and quite misunderstood. But we're going to begin with the most misunderstood of all, the strip copper jacket. This will produce a jacket that's probably the most familiar to anybody who's been sledging for any period of time. The closed base, a traditional open front, fairly thin sidewalls, and it's not at all hard to achieve these jackets on hand equipment at home. For some reason, there seems to be a lot of myth and misunderstanding surrounding this type of jacket production. I hear from people all the time telling me it's far too expensive to get into, that it's slow, that it lacks accuracy, that it's complicated. Nothing could be further from the truth. Like most bullet sledging operations, it's not the cheapest hobby you can get into, but it's by no means outrageously expensive, and it's far from difficult or complicated. The tools we see right here on the table are the basic tools you start with. This is a blanking die that produces a small disc, which is the foundation of everything we do. This is the punch that matches it. This is the cupping die, the internal punch for the cupping die. Nothing complicated at all. These two sets will cut basic copper strip for you without any real effort at all. We should talk for a second about the materials. In this case, in this particular set, I should mention, this is a set in progress. We've just finished all the internal dimensions on it. I haven't taken the time to polish it up on the outside. As you can see, there's Dykem on the base yet. There's some scratches here and there. This particular punch with sliding guide normally will have a full-length spring that holds this little part right up where it goes. But it's minor stuff. I wanted to make the video while these were still in the production phase. There's some things that are easier to show you without all the finished stuff in the way. The material itself, I just cut these out of some 12 by 12 32 thousandths pure copper sheet that I had here, but you can buy 5/8 copper strip commercially. You can buy it from, I believe, Corbin's. You can also buy this in 1 inch wide, 1 1/4 inch, 1 1/2. It comes in a variety of thicknesses from 20 thousandths to 125 thousandths. The most common thickness on the hand presses that you'll run into is this 30 or 32 thousandths of an inch, and some makers are very, very, very specific about the material that they use. I've never completely understood it. These things are not that sensitive by any stretch of the imagination. 32 thousandths is a good jumping off spot. This particular unit will cut a disc just a shade under 5/8 of an inch, and it's going to produce a basic cup that comes in at about 399 thousandths, 400 thousandths, something along that line. And the sidewall, you can't see it too well here, but it's no less than 32 thousandths thick. It's probably close to 40 thousandths at this point, which is not even problematic at all. After 2 or 3 draw dies and a trim, you will be down to this, which is a 705 thousandths 224 jacket with a sidewall of about 12 thousandths of an inch. It's really easy to do. Let me take a second and get the dies set up for you, and we'll move forward and show you how simple this is to start making your own copper strip jackets. Alright, here we go. As you can see, this die mounts in the swedging press. This is a basic Corbin CSP1 press. I figured we'd go with that. It's fairly generic. A lot of people are familiar with it. There's a number of other presses on the market these will work in. With an adapter, this will go right in Richard Corbin's Walnut Hill. It will go in RJKS. It will go in several different modified models I've seen with, as long as they've got a 5/8 24 RAM or an adapter, these work splendidly in a big press like the Corbin Megamite. The blanking punch goes right in the punch holder, just like you would expect. You've got your slot here where the copper strip comes through. This is your ejection port where you remove the finished product. And you simply slide this through. I like to line up that first cut right about even with the front. This punch is adjusted to just about be even with the ejection port down here. And then you simply blank it out. Run it through until the hole is most of the way through. Whoop. Didn't line up right, that'll happen. Just slide it through and start it over. I think when I cut my material, I cut it just a little bit thin. Commercial material's nice and consistent. I was cutting this out of a piece of sheet with a pair of scissors. If it sounds to you like it's taken a lot of effort, it really isn't. This is our construction bench, tri-bench. It's got a lot of loose parts, pieces. It's not the solidest bench in the world, but it takes a lot of abuse. In there we've got a few discs. Make sure you run that all the way in. You'll notice the punch comes just about to those. That's a great indicator. If you run that punch down till it touches the screws, you're just about exactly where you want to be. And we should have a stack of these in there. Whoop. And I threw them all right on the floor. I'll pick them up right here and we'll show you. This is what we end up with. Small batch of little copper pennies, all ready to be lubricated up and turned into the first step in making a jacket. Give us a second, we'll change the dies over and we'll show you what you do next. Alright, we got the next die in. This is the cupping die. This one goes in a little bit different than a regular die. As you can see, it's threaded in from underneath. You can put a lock ring on here if you need to adjust it for any minor alignment or depth. I actually know this one. We try to make these for the 22 sets especially so that you can just run it home or very close to home and the leverage is where you want it. You're going to operate this press again just like before in the swedging mode, not the reloading mode. And as I mentioned, normally between these two studs is a die spring which would hold this slider up. You're going to be, it sits a little bit above flush on the punch. And what this does, this is the alignment. You can see there's a slight bevel inside. It's about 35 thousandths, 40 thousandths deep on this particular one. so that those cups go right in there and sit just about flush. And what we've got is, when this bottoms out in the die, there's just a slight gap, I mean very slight, that allows the disc to start forming the cup and slide up through the die. It requires very little effort. It's very simple to do. You should use a really good lubricant. Use at the very least a swedging lube like Corbin's or one of the homemade units. Anhydrous lanolin and Vaseline are quite common. Corbin's makes a liquid lube that I really like. I'll make up a few thousand of these discs, put them in a tumbler, squirt some of the lube in and run the tumbler. You get a nice even coat on that way. Rooster Laboratories case forming lube works. I have used Imperial Wax. I don't like it. It doesn't tough enough for this particular setup, but it would get you by in a pinch. The various spray lubes or case lubes really don't have enough lubricity to get you going where you need to on this. But what you do, this is going to sit up here, and that disc goes right centered up in the little cavity, and it's ready to go. As I said, normally a spring's holding this up there nice and snug. Keep it aligned. I just probably use my finger on this, but you're talking very little effort to slide that up through, back down. Again, throw another one in there. It'll line right up. Very little effort, and you are making cups. And that is all there is to it. You'll push, it takes half a dozen or so, and they start to climb right out the top on their own. It's better if you don't throw them on the floor like that, but this is what they come out like, as I showed you before. Nice miniature little cup. We can give you an example. This system, this type setup will also work with 1-inch copper strip. It will make a 1-inch will make a 60 caliber cup, give or take, like that, which then draws out into normal length pistol jackets. This is, I think, a 40 cal drawn off that cup. On this equipment, these 60s with the 1-inch material are no harder to make than what you just saw. It's really painless, simple. At this point, you've got a series of cups, and you are ready to start turning them into bullet jackets.